What's going on, my fellow dogs, and welcome to another tier list video. Today we're going to be doing the Mario Kart DS tracks. Just a fair warning, yes, you can see the images of all the tracks on the bottom because the images are way too big to fit, to kind of fit them in, and eventually they'll all be away so you can't see all of them. So you get a sneak peek of some tracks, I guess. Yeah, anyway, let's get started. First off we have is Bowser's Castle, the new one in this game. I'll put it at B tier. I know Nintendo tries to always make the Mario Kart Bowser tracks the new one's obviously the best. This isn't the best one in my opinion, but it's definitely up there as one of my favorites. Sorry, my voice is kind of deep. Next up we have is Desert Hills. I'll put this at C tier. It's not one of my favorite tracks, but it's more interesting in terms of the design of it, especially with the angry sun. That one's actually pretty cool. Next up we have is Delfino Square, easy A tier. Can't go wrong about this one. This is one of my favorites because it's Isle Delfino, so yeah. Next up we have is Luigi's Mansion, putting this also at A tier. One of my favorite tracks as well because it's Luigi's Mansion. I really like that game, so don't think I need to go that far into that, so yeah. Next up we have is Mario Circuit. This is the one I think, or no, Peach Circuit, never mind. Peach Circuit, that was from the GBA game. I'll put it at, I'll put it at D tier. It's a basic track and it's too flat. You can't really go wrong about flat tracks. You could give us some more bumps, just saying. Next up we have is Baby Park. Don't yell at me, but this is an F tier. No basic tracks like that, sorry. Alright, next up, hey, you don't see the tracks. Next up we have is Luigi Circuit. That's what it's called, yeah. I'll put it in the B tier. It's a pretty good track overall, so yeah. Don't need to go in much, it's just a flat track from GBA, so yeah. Next up we have is Bowser Castle 3. This might seem really high, but I'll put it at S tier because this Bowser Castle is pretty cool. For multiple reasons. Or no, it's Bowser Castle 2, never mind. This Bowser Castle is very fun in terms of the tricks. At least they did something with this Bowser's Castle unlike the others, so yeah. Next up we have is DK Pass, easy S tier. Don't need to explain more about this one because it's a classic. It's another good DK kind of track. Next up we have is Figure 8 Circuit, F tier. This is probably the worst beginner track in the whole Mario Kart series. Like the first track in Mushroom Cup always tries to be basic. This is probably the worst one out of all of them. Next up we have is Cheep Cheep Beach. I'll put this at C tier. I didn't play this one that much. I know it's a very interesting track, but something about this is just, it's an okay track, but it's not one of my favorites. Next up we have is Mushroom Bridge, B tier. Love this track as well. Don't need to go in much detail. I think the remake is kind of disappointing to most fans because there's no tricks and stuff, so maybe that's why I don't like this game as much as the others. Sorry, fans. Next up we have is Yoshi's Circuit, C tier. Never liked this track. There's just too many turns and it's just meh. It started out to be interesting, but it just got more boring most of the time. And they kept bringing us back. I guess it is a fan favorite. Next up we have is Mario Circuit, newest one. Surprisingly, I'm putting this at A tier. This one was never brought back, and this is one of the more interesting Mario Circuits in my opinion. So yeah. Next up we have is Banzai Boardwalk. Put it at B tier. This track is very unrepresented in a lot of games, and I guess it's not really a fan favorite. It's the more interesting dark tracks. So yeah, don't need to go that much deep into it. And next up we have is this also, oh, Sky Garden. A tier, a very fun track. I like the music. I feel like this version of it is really fun, so yeah. Next up we have is Luigi's Circuit. This is also going in the S tier. I don't know, this one's, it's in a loop and it's boring. Also, I found it weird that Nintendo named their tracks Luigi Circuit GBA and Luigi Circuit. Good job, Nintendo, for naming things. Next up we have is Choco Island. I think that's what it's called. Because this wasn't, yeah, Choco Mountain, I mean. S tier, love this track. I think the remake is pretty good, at least for a decent. I like how you can fall off and get last place. I'd always love to do that. Next up we have is Airship Fortress, I think that's what it's called. Airship Fortress, yeah, I was right. B tier, love this track. It's a very fun one. If you're in the airship, you're flying. Like, who doesn't like this one, honestly? Next up we have is Freyby Snowland, and might sound ridiculous, D tier. Never liked this track in N64. I feel like this version is okay, but I don't know. It's just way too long and it's flat most of the time. Next up we have is this Mumu Farm. D tier. This track is way too short. Even the remake of this is it's basically the same thing. So yeah. Not much to say, honestly. Next up we have is Peach Gardens. I'll put it at A tier. A very fun track as well, cause it's like going around the garden that's really long. It's a very interesting, fun track. Next up we have is Rainbow Road. I gotta put all the Rainbow Roads in S tier. This is one of the most interesting Rainbow Roads that not a lot of people talk about because they never made this one unique, but I feel like Nintendo always makes their Rainbow Roads really fun, and this came before Wii, so we'll get to that one for sure. Next up we have is Shroom Ridge, I believe this is what it's called. I think. Hold on, I gotta find the name. I think Shroom Ridge or something. I can't remember the name. Anyway, yeah, Shroom Ridge, okay. Putting on C tier. It's a very decent card track, but I feel like card tracks have never been that good, and Nintendo hasn't really made much of these, so yeah, it's a meh track, I guess. Next up we have is Choco Island number 2. D tier. It's a flat track. It's really hard to turn, especially if you're in mirror mode. This track is just way too boring. Next up we have is another Super Mario Kart track, Donut Plains 1. Another D tier because it's flat. I feel like Super Mario Kart tracks just never get updated at all, so yeah. And next up we have is another flat track, Koopa Beach 2, B tier, because this is one of the more interesting tracks. It makes it a decent difficulty. You can fall in the holes actually too. You fall in the holes when you fall in the holes, by the way, you'll get knocked out. It makes it for a decently fun track actually. Next up we have is Mario Circuit number 1, the very first one. Another C tier, because this one's also flat. There's not much going on than just pipes. This track is just boring. I feel like Nintendo never does anything with these tracks. The Super Mario Kart tracks, at least. Next up, TikTok Clock. A tier. It's in reference to Mario 64, so it's gotta give respect to that. And next up we have is Wario Stadium. Might sound ridiculous putting in the A tier, but why not? Because this is another fun track actually. It's one of my favorites. And next up we have is Yoshi Falls, F tier. A lot of people complain about this track because it's a loop, but it's a more interesting like environment going around like a waterfall and stuff, which is cool, but man, it's just not. It's okay, I guess. And last but not least, the best track in the game, easy S tier, Waluigi Pinball. If you don't like this track, you need to go play Mario Kart DS or Mario Kart 7. Anyway, guys, thank you guys for watching this one. Another long video, I know, it's 8 minutes, so there's a lot of tracks. The Wii is also going to be long. 8 Deluxe is probably the longest out of all of them, so yeah. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time for Mario Kart Wii. Later, folks.